Good morning, students. Today we are going to discuss about the first life process, that's nutrition. We do a lot of work every day, many kinds of physical work and mental works. So, to do all these works, we need energy, isn't it? From where do we get this energy? We get energy from the food we eat. So, all organisms, they need some substances to get energy, that is food. As we all know, some organisms synthesize their own food while other organisms, they cannot synthesize their own food. They depend on others for their food. The organisms that synthesize their own food are called autotrophs, while the organisms that cannot synthesize their own food are called heterotrophs. As a result, there are two modes of nutrition, autotrophic nutrition and heterotrophic nutrition. Let's discuss the autotrophic nutrition in detail. The term autotrophs has two parts. Auto means self and trophs means feeding. Therefore, autotrophs means self-feeding. So, how do we define the term autotrophs? Autotrophs are the organisms that synthesize their own food. For example, green plants and some bacteria. Now let's see how plants synthesize their own food. Plants intake inorganic carbon sources like carbon dioxide and convert them into carbohydrates. Is it only carbon dioxide needed for the synthesis of carbohydrates? No. Not only the carbon dioxide, plants need some more materials for the synthesis of carbohydrates. These are the materials plants need for the synthesis of carbohydrates. Carbon dioxide and water are the two main components for the synthesis of carbohydrates. Sunlight and chlorophyll, they help in the synthesis. Now let's study how the plants obtain carbon dioxide. Plants intake carbon dioxide from the atmosphere through the tiny holes present in the leaves called stomata. Stomata is surrounded by special types of cells called guard cells. Water flow in these guard cells are responsible for the opening and closing of the stomata. Let's see how. When water flows inside these guard cells, they swell and it causes the opening of the stomata, and at that time the plants intake carbon dioxide from the atmosphere through the pores. When the water moves out of the guard cells, they shrink and at the same time the stomata closes. At this condition, the plants cannot intake carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. And next, water is also needed for this process. Water, which is also needed for the synthesis, is taken from the soil by the plants. Now, for converting this water and carbon dioxide into carbohydrates, plants need energy. They get this energy from sunlight. Let's see how do plants absorb sunlight. Leaves of the plants have some special organelles called chloroplasts which contain chlorophyll. This chlorophyll helps in the absorption of sunlight. When you see this cross section of a leaf, it has two outermost layers. upper epidermis and lower epidermis. Chloroplast and guard cells are present in between these two layers. Chloroplast contains the chlorophyll pigments. These chlorophyll absorb sunlight and convert carbon dioxide and water into chemical compounds called carbohydrates. So, in this process, the light energy is converted into chemical energy. This process is called photosynthesis. Let's see the equation of photosynthesis. Here, see the equation. Here, carbon dioxide is reduced to carbohydrates and the light energy helps in splitting of water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen. Hydrogen is mixed with carbon dioxide to form carbohydrates and the oxygen is released into the air. Therefore, the process of photosynthesis can be divided into 3 steps. Step 1. Absorption of light energy by chlorophyll. Step 2. Conversion of light energy to chemical energy and splitting of water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen. Step 3. Reduction of carbon dioxide to carbohydrates. So now we can modify the definition of autotrophs like this. Autotrophs are organisms that synthesize their own food by using carbon dioxide and water in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll by the process of photosynthesis. More than carbon dioxide and water, plants need few other raw materials for their survival, like nitrogen, phosphorus, magnesium, etc., which are absorbed from the soil. Now let's have a look on heterotrophic nutrition in a detailed way. What happens next to the food after we put it into our mouth? It's quite complex and different for different organisms. We have seen that heterotrophic animals depend on autotrophs and other heterotrophic animals for their nutrition. Now, these animals have different strategies for taking the food. Let us see what are the different strategies which are followed by these animals for taking the food. Firstly, there are some organisms take in the food by breaking it outside the body. For example, bread molds, yeast, mushroom, etc. They take in the food by breaking the complex food particles outside the body and then absorbing it. This type of nutrition is called a saprophytic nutrition. But on the other hand, there are some other organisms like human beings and animals. They take in the whole food into the body and then start the breaking of food. They are called holozoic animals. In the same way, there are some organisms, they derive their nutrition from plants and other animals and they are called as parasitic animals. For example, lice, leeches and tapeworms. Now let's see the digestion process in unicellular organisms. These unicellular organisms uses their whole body for the digestion process like amoeba. Amoeba is a unicellular organism. Whenever it sees a food particle, it has a finger-like projection on its surface. These finger-like projections are called pseudopodia. This pseudopodia gets fused with the food particle, forming a food vacuole in it. This food vacuole breaks down the complex food particles into the smaller ones. And then these simpler food particles get diffused into the cytoplasm of the whole amoeba and the undigested food is thrown out through the surface of the cell. Another unicellular organism, that is paramecium, also derives food in the same way. Paramecium has a specific spot on its cell surface from which it can take the food. Cilia, which are present on the surface, helps the cell to move towards the food particle. In simple words, we can say that cilia perform the function of hands. Now let's see the digestion in human beings. Once the food enters into the alimentary canal, it has to pass through 5 organs and then 2 other organs and other 2 organs which assist digestion by secreting the digestive juices. So it takes approximately 6 to 8 hours to complete the digestion process. Now let's see the digestion process in a detailed way. The food digestion starts from the mouth itself. That is the reason why we should chew the food properly. Grinding food starts with the mixing of it with the saliva. Saliva performs 2 functions. It softens the food so that it can easily pass through the food pipe. And saliva contains an enzyme called salivary amylase that breaks down the complex starch molecule to sugar. Now the food has become a little soft and simpler form. Then it passes into the esophagus or food pipe. This esophagus has a thin lining of muscles which contract and relax rhythmically. These movements are called peristaltic movements, and these movements help the esophagus to push the food into the stomach. The stomach expands when the food enters into it. The digestive juices help the thorough mixing of the food. Stomach releases 2 enzymes that helps in digestion. Stomach releases hydrochloric acid to make the food acidic. This helps the pepsin enzyme to break down the proteins into peptides. Now what are these peptides? Peptides are the shorter chains of amino acids. We have seen that hydrochloric acid is also released in the stomach to protect the inner lining of stomach from the damage caused by hydrochloric acid. It has a mucus covering. Sometimes you might have heard that people suffer from acidity. This acidity is caused by the excess release of hydrochloric acid. Now the food is pushed into the small intestine with the help of sphincter muscles. This small intestine is the longest part of the alimentary canal. Small intestine is about 6 meters longer than us. The length of the small intestine is different in different animals. It varies depending on the food they eat. The herbivores have a longer intestine, while the carnivores and omnivores have a shorter small intestine. Since the food comes from stomach is acidic, the bile juice from the liver makes it alkaline and helps in the digestion of fat. The pancreas releases enzymes called trypsin, which helps in the synthesis of protein, and lipase helps in the digestion of carbohydrates. When you reach the final stage of digestion, the complex protein has been broken down into amino acids, and the carbohydrates has been broken down into simpler sugars, and the fats has been broken down to fatty acids and glycerol. Now the food is absorbed in the small intestine after the digestion process is complete by the finger-like projections called villi, which are present in the inner lining of the small intestine. The villi has blood vessels which take the absorbed food to each and every cell of the body, where it is used for obtaining energy, building up new tissues, and the repair of all tissues. Now, The remaining undigested food is sent to the large intestine. It also has villi which absorbs water from the undigested food. Now the remaining undigested food is thrown out of the body through anus, which is regulated by the anal sphincter. This way, the digestion process completes inside the human body. Thank you.